The restaurant overlooked Sydney Harbor, all glass and white tablecloths and people dressed to impress. My sister Jade stood at the microphone, radiant in her engagement glow, thanking everyone for coming. Her fiancé Marcus stood beside her, beaming. Then Jade's eyes found me at the back table, and her smile shifted into something sharper. I want to thank my sister Amara for being here. Sorry about her accent, everyone. She never quite managed to lose that. You know, immigrant thing. A bit embarrassing at events like this, but what can you do? Not everyone adapts to Australia properly. Polite laughter rippled through the room, nervous, cutting. My parents looked at their plates. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, and I sat there, feeling the familiar burn of shame, the one that had followed me since I was 12 years old, stepping off a plane into a country that would never quite accept me. I didn't respond, didn't defend myself. I just smiled, raised my glass, and stayed silent. 3 months later, Jade called me, voice desperate, begging for help. Her fiancé's business was collapsing. They needed connections in China. Urgent, high level. The kind only someone with deep cultural roots could provide. The kind I had. And suddenly, the accent she'd mocked for 20 years was the only thing that could save her. My name is Amara Chen. I'm 32 years old, and I came to Australia from Guangzhou when I was 12. I still remember the flight, holding my mother's hand, my father telling me in Mandarin that we were going to have a better life. When we landed in Sydney, I spoke 3 words of English. Hello, thank you, sorry. I learned the rest in classrooms where kids laughed at my pronunciation, in playgrounds where I ate lunch alone, in shops where people spoke slowly and loudly like I was deaf instead of foreign. My sister Jade was born 2 years after we arrived. She's Australian. Completely, entirely never questioned Australian. She speaks English without an accent. She has no memory of China. She grew up embarrassed by our parents' broken English, by the Chinese decorations in our home, by me. Because even after 20 years, even after I learned English, mastered it, excelled in it, my accent remained. Not thick, but present. A slight lilt on certain words, a rhythm that marked me as other. And to Jade, that was unforgivable. If you've ever been made to feel ashamed of where you came from, this story is for you. And listen, before we go any further, I want to ask you something. If you're enjoying this story, if it's speaking to you, would you hit that subscribe button? It really helps me keep sharing these stories, and honestly, your support means everything. Thank you. Now let me tell you how this really began. Growing up, Jade and I lived in 2 different worlds under the same roof. My parents spoke to me in Mandarin. They spoke to Jade in broken English because she refused to learn Chinese. I helped translate parent-teacher meetings, medical appointments, bills. Jade pretended she didn't understand when our parents spoke their native language. At family dinners, when relatives visited from China, I translated, facilitated, bridged worlds. Jade sat silently, bored, waiting for them to leave. Why can't they just speak English? She'd complain after they'd gone. It's so embarrassing. By the time I was 18, I'd become the family's cultural intermediary. But instead of appreciation, I got criticism. From Jade especially. She'd correct my pronunciation in front of her friends. It's 3, not tree, Amara. She'd cringe when I ordered food, when I answered the phone, when I existed in public with her. Once, she uninvited me from her 16th birthday party because her friends were coming and she didn't want to deal with explaining me. My parents let her. They'd learned to prioritize Jade's comfort over my dignity. In my 20s, I stopped trying to fit into Jade's version of Australian. I leaned into my identity instead. I studied international relations at university, specialized in China-Australia trade relations, learned 3 Chinese dialects. I realized something my family had missed. Being bicultural wasn't a weakness. It was a superpower. While Jade was trying to erase her heritage, I was building a career on it. I became a consultant, connecting Australian businesses to Chinese manufacturers, investors, markets. My accent that Jade mocked. It was proof I could navigate both worlds. Companies paid me extraordinary amounts for that bridge. By 30, I was earning $250,000 a year. I'd traveled to Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen dozens of times. I had contacts in the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, relationships with factory owners, friendships with executives who controlled billions. I could walk into a meeting in Sydney and speak perfect English with my slight accent, then switch to flawless Mandarin when the Chinese delegation arrived. I was invaluable, but my family never asked about my work. They just assumed I did something with translation. The engagement party was typical. Jade showing off, my parents beaming with pride for their Australian daughter, me relegated to the background. When she made that comment about my accent, about me not adapting properly, something inside me finally broke. Not loudly, quietly, like a door closing. I decided then that I was done trying to earn respect from people who decided I was shameful. I left the party early, went home to my apartment in Piermont, and blocked Jade's number. If she wanted to be embarrassed by me, fine, she could do it without my presence. 3 months of silence passed, peaceful silence. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Amara? Jade's voice was small, strained. Please don't hang up. I didn't respond, just waited. I need help. Marcus's business is in trouble. His tech startup needs to finalize a manufacturing contract with a Chinese supplier. They've been trying for weeks but can't get access to the right factories. They have 2 weeks or they lose their Series A funding. Everything falls apart. She paused. Someone told me you work in this area, in China relations. Is that true? I smiled without humor. Yes. Can you help us? Please. I know I don't deserve to ask, but Marcus could lose everything. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel the weight of asking for help from the sister she'd spent 20 years diminishing. Why should I? Because I'm your sister. That didn't matter at your engagement party, I said quietly. When you told 100 people I was embarrassing, that I never adapted properly. She started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been awful to you. I know that. But please, Marcus is desperate. Can we meet? Can I explain? I looked at the Sydney skyline through my window, lights reflecting off the harbor. I'll think about it. I hung up. Part of me wanted to say no, wanted her to feel what failure felt like. But another part, the part that remembered us as children before the shame set in, made me pause. That night, I looked up Marcus's company. The situation was worse than Jade had described. They'd developed innovative software but needed Chinese manufacturing for the hardware component. Without it, the whole project collapsed. I had exactly the contacts they needed. 3 phone calls to Shenzhen and I could solve their problem. But the question wasn't whether I could help. It was whether I should, and what it would cost Jade to ask. You're still here. Good. Because what happens next is where everything shifts. Stay with me, and if you're finding this story powerful, please hit that subscribe button. What's coming is going to hit you right in the heart. 2 days later, I agreed to meet Jade at a cafe in Newtown. She arrived looking exhausted, makeup not quite hiding the stress. She ordered tea, I ordered coffee, and we sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. Thank you for coming. I haven't agreed to help yet. She nodded. I know, I need you to understand something. Marcus built this company from nothing. He's worked so hard. And this contract is everything. If it falls through, we lose investors. The team loses their jobs. 5 years of work disappears. Why can't he find the contacts himself? I asked. He's tried. We've hired consultants. But no one can get past the initial gatekeepers. The factories we need, they only work with established relationships, with people they trust. We don't have that. But I do, I said. She met my eyes. Yes. I didn't realize until Marcus mentioned your name to a colleague who said you're one of the most connected consultants in Australia-China trade. I had no idea what you actually did. You never asked. The words hung there. Jade looked down. I know. I was. I was ashamed of the wrong things. I thought being Australian meant erasing everything Chinese. I thought your accent was a sign you hadn't tried hard enough. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. You made me feel like I was less than, I said quietly. For 20 years, every comment, every eye roll, every time you corrected my English in front of people, you made me feel like I should be ashamed of who I am. Tears spilled down her face. I know, and I'm sorry. I can't take it back. But I'm asking now, not just for help, but for a chance to make this right. I studied her. If I help Marcus, I have conditions. She wiped her eyes. Anything. I want you to acknowledge what you did, not just to me, but in front of Mum and Dad, in front of the family who watched you mock me for years. I want you to recognize that the heritage you were ashamed of, the culture you tried to erase, is exactly what's saving you now. She nodded. Okay, yes, I'll do that. And I want you to stop being ashamed. Of me, of our parents, of being Chinese Australian. Because that shame has poisoned this family long enough. I will, she whispered. I promise. I took a breath. I'll make some calls. Give me a week. The next 7 days were a masterclass in what cultural bridges actually look like. I called my contact in Shenzhen, Mr. Wang, who I'd worked with for 5 years. Explained the situation in Mandarin. He agreed to meet Marcus's team. I flew to China with Marcus. Jade insisted on coming too. In the meetings, I translated not just words but cultural nuances. When to be direct, when to be subtle, when to discuss business, when to share tea and build relationship. Marcus was brilliant technically, but he didn't understand that in China, trust comes before contracts. I spent evenings with Mr. Wang's family, sharing meals, laughing in Mandarin, building the foundation that would make business possible. Jade watched, silent, seeing for the first time what I actually did. How my language skills, my cultural understanding, my ability to move between worlds was worth more than any MBA. On the 4th day, Mr. Wang agreed to terms. By day 7, we had a signed contract. Marcus's company was saved. On the flight back to Sydney, Jade sat next to me. I've been thinking, she said, about everything. About how I spent 20 years trying to be something I'm not. And how you spent 20 years being exactly who you are, and it made you extraordinary. I didn't respond immediately. Finally, it wasn't easy. I know, and I made it harder. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Not yet, but it was a start. 2 weeks after we returned, Jade organized a family dinner. My parents, our aunt and uncle, the same people who'd been at the engagement party. Jade stood, glass in hand, and spoke. I need to say something. For years, I've been ashamed of being Chinese Australian. I refused to learn Mandarin. I mocked my parents' English. And worst of all, I made Amara feel like her accent was something to hide. She looked at me. But Amara's accent isn't a flaw. It's proof she learned a second language, that she bridges 2 cultures, that she's brave enough to exist fully in both worlds. She just saved Marcus's company using the exact skills I spent 20 years belittling. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's eyes filled with tears. Jade continued, I'm sorry, Amara. For every comment, every eye roll, every moment I made you feel less than. You're not less than. You're more than I ever understood. The table was silent. Then my father spoke in Mandarin, his voice thick with emotion. We owe you an apology too. We prioritized Jade's comfort over your dignity. We let her treat you badly because we wanted her to feel Australian. We were wrong. I felt something unlock in my chest. 20 years of carrying shame that was never mine to carry. I forgive you, I said in Mandarin, then English. But things have to change. They will, my mother promised. And slowly, they did. Jade started taking Mandarin classes. My parents began speaking Chinese at home again without apology. At family gatherings, our heritage wasn't hidden, it was celebrated. And when Jade got married 6 months later, she asked me to give a speech. In both languages. I stood at that wedding, microphone in hand, and spoke first in English, then in Mandarin. I talked about bridges, about belonging to two worlds, about how our differences made us stronger, not weaker. When I finished, the room erupted in applause, and Jade, in her white dress, walked over and hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "Thank you," I replied, "for finally seeing me. Here's what I want you to know. If you speak with an accent, if you move between cultures, if you've been made to feel like you don't quite belong in either world, you are not less than. You are more. You carry languages, perspectives, histories that monolingual, monocultural people will never access. That's not a weakness. That's power. And anyone who makes you feel ashamed of that is trying to diminish something they don't understand. Your accent is proof of your courage. Every mispronounced word is evidence that you tried. Every moment of cultural translation is a skill most people will never have. Don't hide that. Don't shrink. Because the world needs people who can bridge divides, who understand multiple perspectives, who carry more than one story in their heart. That's you. And you're extraordinary. What do you think? Was I right to help Jade? Or should I have let her face the consequences? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story, especially if you've navigated multiple cultures or been judged for your accent. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. More real, powerful stories about people reclaiming their identity are coming your way. Thank you for being here. And remember, your voice, accent, and all is exactly what the world needs to hear.